Dusty, snap out of it!
Any of this look familiar?
Our constellation contact is on approach.
Yeah, but come on. Exploring space? Who does that anymore? Ain't the space we've already got complicated enough?
Welcome aboard the Starfield Report podcast.
Welcome everyone back to the Starfield Report podcast. I am your host, Kenneth Smyson, and with me as always is Jax. How you doing, Jax?
I'm doing great. Good morning, captains. Hope you guys are doing great joining us today.
And we are going to be, let's see, what are we going to do today? Jax, you shared some important stuff with me the other night.
Yes, the Starfield Report has some Starfield news to report.
Wow.
Imagine that.
You know, it's
Bethesda after 5 months.
it's,
So let's talk about that a little bit.
yeah, it's been a bit of a barren wasteland on the actual reporting we're able to do, but it's fun. As long as Bethesda, they always kind of keep things close to the chest. They, especially Oblivion release, right? So,
Right?
I'm glad they don't talk too much on one hand, but doing a podcast where we'd like to talk about what they talk about means we don't talk about what they want to talk about because they don't talk about the stuff they are doing until it's ready for release or close to it. So, but not to worry. So we'll get into that. And oh man, yeah, I'm gonna I need to download Oblivion. I need to pick that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying not to. I'm like, I've got a Starfield podcast, guys. I can't split my time, my loyalties, but
It's hard.
Yep.
I've not played Starfield lately. I mean, I played the last few days.
Mhm.
I put in, 6 or 7 hours building a spaceship that I wanted to recreate and update the avant-garde. But I've not done a lot since I've gone through the Unity for in order to use Darkstar. So, and then of course Oblivion comes out and it's like, well, I gotta play that. And I got it on Game Pass, and I got Game Pass specifically for that. So I got like a month.
Yeah.
Play with it, try it out, and see if I'm gonna get bored or see if I want to spend $50 to grab it and have it.
Gotcha.
I'd like to see him put it on a disc so I could have a physical copy. But as of right now, they don't have any plans, it looks like, of putting it on a disc. So digital copy only right now.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day, and as a PC player, predominantly using Steam, I haven't purchased a physical copy of anything for a long time, and I can see the concern that can cause. For somebody who's so used to having physical copies, hopefully it doesn't mean there's going to be anything bad. But I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, like what's the worst case scenario? They don't really have access to our games as they're installed. However, they could change the content of the game if you ever do have to reinstall it.
Mm-hmm.
It might be edited. Like there was that one show on Netflix a few years ago. It was the Suicide Show. What was that called? Some like 12 Reasons Why or 13 Reasons Why, something like that. This girl commits suicide, and that going into the show. And each episode, she dedicates she's pointing out to the person that caused her. There's a whole bunch of people that caused her to kill herself. Very infamously, the scene where she actually kills herself, they went in and they edited, or they cut out some parts to have it be less graphic, which really was very divisive between people. Because on one hand, people were like, no, you should show it exactly what it was. On the other hand, people were saying it was too graphic. I'm like, well, you're watching a show on suicide. What do you expect? Care Bears and
Right. It's dark subject matter. It's gonna be
Yeah.
dark.
So, so that right there, I can see how that could be a problem with digital copies, where the game developers decide, you know what, we just don't like this about the game, and so we're going to change this about the game, and so next time you guys have to download it, it's going to be different.
So that's been a discussion with Oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken, and Bethesda's never been known to be this overly sexualized fantasy land. Like Conan the Barbarian and like, bra armor and panty armor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where the modders come in.
Yeah, modders on the other hand are quite sick, twisted. But Bethesda has not been known for that. I mean, of course, the women are shapely like women, and the men are blocky and square-shouldered like men. Well, I was watching a video where they've taken side-by-side frame shots of like different statues where they've reduced bust size, reduced hip size, changed the dress to where it's higher necklines, not as plunging necklines. Some of the outfits have been changed to where they're less underclothing looking and more covering and less revealing. So they've already done some editing behind the scenes. They didn't say anything to anybody, but less sexualized some stuff.
But in this case, you're referring to the remaster.
Yes, the remaster of the original.
It'd be one thing if they went to the original game files,
and that's what you're.
And that, a remaster, they're editing their product. You can still go play the old one, as undisturbed, right? So yeah. I mean, kudos to them having multiple body types though, because like, I mean, I'm not exactly the most in shape guy. I'm not like I'm slightly overweight. So like, if I want to play somebody that's a little pudgy, so when I'm walking around Starfield and I'm walking around the big cities, there's skinny people, there's some plump people.
Yeah.
A little bit more normal. I mean, rather than everybody being a, Sports Illustrated cover model.
Right. They're not all Spartans and goddesses.
Yeah. Now, granted, most of the time when I play a game, I'm playing some ripped dude. So,
Right. What else would the hero look like?
Yeah. It's the whole, whole role play fantasy thing. I'm like, I want to be good looking. Of course, I could just get off my lazy ass and go work out a little bit more and eat a little better.
I could too, but I'm old and tired. I got dad bod. What it's for.
Yeah, same here.
My life. I can relax a little bit. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So we were talking about like no physical copy of games and what the upside is and the downside. And the upside is everything's streaming. The industry's going to streaming. You just have everything on your digital library. It's always accessible. It's really super easy, blah, blah. The downside is, and this happened to me, I bought Fallout 76, and I bought it independently of Game Pass. Then about 6 or 8 months ago, they changed the Game Pass to like Game Pass Core, Game Pass Ultimate, Game Pass PC with Ultimate. And with the Game Pass Core, I couldn't play Fallout 76. It didn't have the streaming ability for multiplayer. But it's my game, but I can't play it. I had to get the next notch up to the Game Pass Ultimate in order to play it. So if I didn't pay for a subscription of Game Pass, I wouldn't be able to play any streaming games. And that's what scares me about a lot of these new games are always online. If you're not paying for an online subscription of some kind, you're not going to have access to the ability to play a lot of even your single player games.
Well, Fallout 76, did you buy that game outright when it did come out?
I have a physical game. I bought a digital download of it.
Okay.
I bought the game, yes, so that I wouldn't have to be dependent on something like that.
But then you couldn't play it because, wow.
Yeah,
that's
so
not
that's
cool.
The scary thing about not having, and that's a multiplayer example. Starfield is a all-time online game.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have an internet connection, you can't play your game. But I could unplug my internet connection and I could put in my old Skyrim disc and play it just fine.
But you're saying we can't play Starfield without an internet connection?
Yes, I'm saying that.
I've never even tried unplugging my internet and seeing what happens if I play it.
Yep. Every once in a while, you'll have your modem go down, especially on console, because that's what I'm accustomed to. And the modem will hiccup and you'll need to reset the modem. And you don't know it until you try to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And you fire up Starfield and it'll say this game requires internet connection. So, no internet, no gamey. If you had a physical copy, which I do have a physical copy of Starfield, but it still relies on an internet connection.
Oh, as long as you're not on Game Pass and you've got all the required files and patches downloaded, you can still play Starfield offline.
Okay.
So maybe because you've been playing it with Game Pass online, there's some issue with it.
I don't know, because I originally bought it on Game Pass to check it out, and I had it for of course, 5 months at $20 a month. And at that point, I'm like, okay, this is a keeper game. So I went and spent. It went on sale. I think I bought it for $50, 49 from 59 from $60 down to $50, something like that.
Okay.
So I went and bought a physical copy. I have a physical copy of Starfield. And I deleted the game, erased it off of my hard drive, kept my saves.
Yep.
And then inserted the disc and downloaded it from disc, which was still 60 gigabytes, 100 gigabytes, however big it is. It's a huge game. And so I don't think the discs anymore are even the game. They're just a game key. Is what it seems like. It's just your not trademark, your copyright key.
Well,
right?
Did you, when you put the disc in, was it installing from the disc to the hard drive of the console, or was it literally downloading from the internet?
I think it just saw the disc and says, okay, we're allowed to give you a digital copy. And then it downloads from the internet, the 100 and something gigabytes from the internet.
Do you have to download to play it? You can't play it off the disc?
No, no, you can't just play it straight off the disc. Like, the older games, and you'll hear the disc whirl up.
Yep.
Every once in a while as it's transitioning to the next chunk of information. Yeah, no, this is more of it's just a key code. The disc is just kind of a key code.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't become a larger issue going forward.
We'll see. It's not like we have a whole lot of a voice in the matter. The CEO's not coming to us and asking us what we think.
Well,
we're still gonna
yes and no. I mean, it as individuals know, but the reality is you look at some of the industry giants that have, collapsed or not collapsed, but
Maddie Plays talks about this quite a bit in a few videos. That's where I kind of became aware of this issue, was watching him. And he's a big gamer. He's a big game collector.
Okay.
And he's turned around his camera and showed his room, and it's bookshelves, top ceiling to floor, physical copy of games. Just game. Tons and tons of different games. And that's his hobby. I don't even know if he's played all of them, but it's one of those things where I got to have the next Pokemon game. There's 25 of them. I got to have them all. Yeah,
on Facebook there's these nostalgia pages that I don't know why, but I've been maybe because I'm over the hill, but I get a lot of those in my suggested reels and stuff.
You're at the top of the hill. You're not over the hill. Come on.
That's true. I'm like, barely over it at the top. But the ones I've been seeing a lot are Halo, and they play the Halo 3 credit music, and somebody will just be showing the walking through the maps, each of the ones that we would have played on Halo 2 or Halo 3, and the maps are empty because it's just a person doing it by themselves, and it hits me right in the feels, because we had the 2000s in particular, I really think was the golden age for gaming. And not to say that games aren't continuing to be fun and everything, but there was definitely something special about that decade. And
Yeah.
I was born in '81, so I remember my childhood clearly with the NES. Mario Bros. And Excite Bike, all the classic NES ones, going on into Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, of the '90s, and Nintendo 64 with GoldenEye. So I remember the '80s and '90s, and obviously, the previous decade and halfway through this one. There was something special about the 2000s and that's when the online play became a real thing, and exploded in a big way. So I think that's probably why, because suddenly the community globally was able to be connected. In particular, Halo 3, because on Halo 3, there was, whenever you went to play multiplayer, there was a map that showed a little white dot all over the world, where there was a player everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's you're talking about the 2000s, the 2000 to 2010 era. And I'm thinking back and I've gamed for a long time since my original PC had 256 megabytes of hard drive space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a while. That was in the 89, 90, 91, somewhere right in there. That's when I graduated college.
Yeah.
So I've been gaming since then. And you're right. The breakthrough, I was trying to think of what was the big change? And it was all of the 3D modeling became first person shooter modeling and third person shooter.
Yep.
You went from the isometrics to the first person, third person style, where you had 3D rendering in the game where it seemed like a real environment, as opposed to top down looking at little gaming miniatures like you would play a D&D on a tabletop. So that was a big shift. And you're right. It was still had the deep immersive storytelling, but then you had this new 3D aspect. Yeah, very interesting to think about.
The first 3D I played was Wolfenstein. The original Wolfenstein 3D. Well, and shortly thereafter I played Doom. On
Right.
PC.
I
So
think Doom
they were like
the original
2D drawings but in a 3D space you could run around.
Yeah. I think the original Doom was probably my first person 3D game. Yeah.
Nice.
And that was a big deal. And they talked about a lot of that. And I think that was in the late 90s, 98, 97, something like that.
Yeah, I think Wolfenstein was mid 90s, and then just a year or two later Doom came out.
It was very Minecraft looking though. Very blocky.
Yeah, there were times I went back to try to play it again, like in the 2000s. I was like, man, I remember this game was so awesome. I went and played it. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I even went back and tried to play Morrowind, and I'm like, can't do it. They're gonna have to remake this one for me to be able to play it. I can't go back that far. Just too much for me. I'm too spoiled with what we've got now. Yeah. I mean, we've got Starfield, which for me, I mean, here we are doing a podcast about it.
Yep.
So,
well, speaking of which, it's funny the Skyrim edit guys. I think Victor and Ray, if I remember correct, they started with Skyrim. So when they went back to Oblivion, they couldn't do it. Yeah. And the same with me when I started on Oblivion and I tried to go back to Morrowind. I couldn't do it because just the graphics were, a generation old. And so I tried. I really, really tried, but to me it looked like I was trying to play an MMO. Because MMOs typically the graphics are like a little bit behind to count, to account for so many players playing at the same time and accessibility. So, like when I went to play World of Warcraft for a while, it was about 12, 13 years ago, graphics were just like, oh my goodness, but it was an MMO. So, the graphics were way less than what Skyrim was at the time. Yeah.
And it showed.
Yeah.
Because I've gone back and tried to play Fallout 3, and that's just on the cusp of, I can barely play it. We need some help on that one. But Skyrim, having the ability to mod it, if you don't like the graphics, you can even on console now, you can just get some graphic mods, upgrade it to where you want it, and still play it.
Yep.
But Fallout 3, Fallout Vegas, I would love to see them do a remake like they've done Oblivion with those 2 games. That would be so awesome.
All right, and we have our news here. I'm on Bethesda's website, and this is the Starfield update, May 6, 2025. It's currently in beta, and so if there's any players out there that have access to the Steam beta, they can get into this. And so, okay, so as we scroll down here, let's see, the first section is the features, and they're doing a lot of stuff. Now, right out the gate, this doesn't add any new content. It's mainly for bug fixes and kind of setting up some creation kit stuff for players. So a big highlight is that creations can now be up to 2 gigabytes in size. And so that's going to be huge, because that's when you're going to start seeing more of the new quests, and a longer storyline with players that are having more audio with it and going to new locations, especially custom built locations for their quest lines. That's where you're going to see that 2 gigabyte really be useful for modders. So
you're on Steam, right?
Yes.
And Steam has these things where you can download a mod, but it's like a bundled mod. It's got a bunch of different mods that have been pre-chosen, pre-selected, all added together as this Starfield bundle, right? You want a darker universe. This adds zombies and it blah, 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 right? So you've got this mod that adds a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Look at the line just above the 2 gigabyte line. Creation Store now supports bundling creations. So if you wanted a ton of ships and a ton of shipbuilding, this is the creation, the shipbuilding bundle. And it's got, I'm not saying this is it. I'm saying this is what they could do. So all of your different habs that you've got for Falkland and Maps and Owl, all of those, what if those were all on one mod? And you didn't have to put them in a load order of 10 different mods in your load order somewhere. You just put the one bundle in, boom, shipbuilding mod.
Okay.
Everything was there. Right? Oh,
Nice.
You want to do outpost building? Here's 3 different kinds of outposts. You want to do farming? You want to do industrial? Here's an industrial outpost building bundle.
Now I'm curious, then, does that mean different, the mod authors have to agree to allow their mods to be bundled in with something else, or is it a mod author's own little personal bundles?
If I understand it right, I see a lot of guys that they'll take a Steam mod,
Okay.
and a different mod author or a different person than the author of the mod itself will upload it over to Creation Club.
Okay.
And sometimes it'll say with the permission of King Gath. Sometimes it doesn't say who the original mod author was, if they had permission. I don't know how much control. Once you upload it, I don't know how much control you have over where it goes.
Oh, especially if it's a creations thing, because you're kind of going into a partnership with Bethesda, so they certainly would have a measure of control over that content, I imagine.
Right. It's like uploading photos to Facebook. Sure, it's your photo, but you know what? Everybody gets it now.
Yeah. And even if you delete your Facebook, they keep all the content.
Oh, there's that point. Yep. So very similar, probably.
Okay.
But I'm excited about bundles because you've got mod. What's it called that controls all your different mods on Steam? You've got the
on Steam. Well, so I use Vortex, which is Nexus.
But what's that called?
Well, Nexus is the website, and then Vortex is the mod manager.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh, okay.
So you've got mod managers. This essentially will allow consoles that kind of freedom, where people could build an entire mod list and say, here's our 1.95 gigabyte mod list. Review the list. If you like what's on it, boom, download it. Don't have to worry about load order. You would, somebody's already figured that out for you.
Okay.
I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that'll be useful for consoles. If that's some functionality that you guys have not had access to, then that's pretty huge.
Yeah, I'm constantly having to mess with load order. Anytime I decide, you get to a spot where you feel like your game is teetering right on the edge of breaking, and you're like, oh, I sure want to put that extra mod on there, but I'm afraid I'm gonna crash my game and I'll have to start over. So it's always a balance.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of mods. I think I've got about 20. I'd have to double check. Maybe a little more than 20, maybe 25. But I never have to worry about my load order because Vortex does it for me basically. Yeah. I can manually control it, I'm sure, if I wanted to, but in general, I don't have to worry about that. All right, so moving on, we're going to look at the general section. These are just some bug fixes, UI crash stability issues. Now, you were saying before we started recording, there's that we've had that issue where there's the stuttering, in particular the densely populated areas like Neon City, the Well, Sidonia, and then strangely in the Entangled mission. Those are the 4 places. Yep. And that issue for me has come and gone. I used to think it was associated with going through the Unity, like maybe once you open a new game and, you don't have all of your ships all speak, you don't have your outposts, and you just don't have stuff, everywhere that could be bogging the game down. That's what I thought it was related to. But there's been times now, because I've gone through the Unity a few times, there's been a couple times where I barely get to Neon City and I'm less than level 10 and it's already happening. Now, but when we were interviewing Wicked last episode, he was saying it has something to do with those inner spaces where there's mods that affect. If you have a mod installed that has an impact on those locations, that's what is triggering it. And he said the modding community has not isolated and identified that yet. And that's if I understood what he said correctly. So hopefully this means that stuttering will go or get a lot better. Or
I hope so.
Worse,
I've got
lessen.
Not worse.
Yeah,
we hope.
Lessen. Yeah.
But
or go away completely.
I've got a character that's gone through 2 characters just through the Unity, and the one I've been playing with, I updated my Dark Star, so it's Dark Star Total Game Overhaul 1.0.1, so it's the newest version. And in order to do that, it changes some of the building desks, right? Your man, I'm old. Brain's not working right. But it changed the way that you access in the back end, not on the front end.
Yeah.
You access your benches.
Okay.
So he recommended that you delete your old outposts with the Dark Star landing pad on it, and you build a new one. So my particular instance, going back to the stuttering, I'm on Katie Did 3, so brand new planet, no people. I'm on a brand new outpost, no buildings, only the Dark Star Omega landing pad. That's it. And then, of course, all my mods. And just me, by myself, on that planet, building a ship, I stutter. Just walking across the outpost.
That is so weird.
So, I'm hoping it fixes that, because it's a little frustrating right now. I mean, I'm working around it, but what do you do? We'll see. I've had somebody suggest to me it could be a load order issue also. So my load order seems to be fine. I'm not crashing. It doesn't seem to be doing anything funny other than the stuttering.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens if this new patch, which if you look at all of the patch notes combined, seems like there's just a lot of optimization going on, because they've got like the low, they've got one of the entries here says that you have, where'd it go? Very low display settings to improve performance on some devices.
What section are you looking at right now?
It's under features. That's the very first line under features.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, and that's what we're talking about, right? With or you were mentioning that before we recorded. The very low display setting is going to hopefully allow them to fix that stuttering issue, right?
Right. Because in order to get games to play smooth on a low performance like a Switch,
Yep.
was the one that was specifically brought up in some of the discussions that I was listening to. In order for them to be able to get to play on a low end device, they had to optimize a bunch of stuff. By optimizing a bunch of stuff, mid tier devices should get some optimization improvement. That's what everybody's theory is. We'll see. Once we got to wait till it gets out in the wild. Right now, it's on beta. So we'll see. Next week after, it should be live. What else do we got going on here?
Okay, so moving on to the gameplay section, there's a few things they've done. The biggest thing for me that it caught my eye was the weapons, where they took the Space Adept legendary effect, and it no longer has a negative modifier for terrestrial damage. My space trucker loves this because I try to spend as much time in space with him. The only time I'm on the planets is if I'm selling or completing a mission, or if a quest takes me to a surface to do something. Other than that, I'm in space engaging with pirates and all the other POI spaceships you can come across. And so, when I would go land on a planet, I'd have to decide, well, do I want to use this weaker weapon now that I'm on the planet surface, or carry a separate weapon just for the occasional time I'm on the ground. So I definitely like that update to the Space Adept effect.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of stuff. Like we had said before, a lot of this is just back end maintenance and optimization and just cleaning some stuff up. And they do a lot of this kind of stuff when they're preparing to release new content. Probably because as they're preparing to release preparing the new content, they're finding these things going, hey, we've got to fix that before our new stuff is going to work right.
That's very true. Yeah, so hopefully this is foundational into getting, maybe this summer, getting the next big download.
Yeah. When did Shattered Space come out? That was September?
I think so. I remember it being close to a year from the original game launch. So hopefully we won't have to wait that long this time.
June would be 9 months. July, 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're doing a once a year, kind of a once a year scheduling of content, we got a couple of months left. I'm graciously adding a week here and a week there. We've got 3 or 4 months left, I guess.
Yep.
We're not in June. We're still in April, May. So first part of May, June, July, August. It's 4 September. That's 5 months. So yeah, I guess we still got a little while for it to be a year. But hopefully they're releasing it when it's ready. I guess that would be the best way to go.
And I noticed one of the lines here in the gameplay says, addressed an issue where dropped items could lose their stolen status. So now I wonder if there's like this little, because I've never been into doing the thieving stuff quite yet in the game. So I wonder if there is like a contingent of players that discover that if you have a stolen item and you drop it, the little red stolen marker disappears when you pick it back up.
That's kind of handy.
Yep.
I've got the mod called The Crew specifically for that reason. One of the guys in the crew is a fence. And so I just keep him on my ship all the time. So I can always just go to him, sell all my stuff to him. And then if I want to get the stolen off of it, I just buy it back from him. But it's nice to have a fence right there local on your ship. Okay. I keep the doctor and the fence and usually the captain. I think those are the 3 people that I keep out of the crew. And the rest of them, I just dismiss them to an outpost somewhere.
Yeah, that would make sense to have a fence on your ship. But the thing is like, so can you sell to him and then jump to a new system and you're scanned and you don't have the stolen items on your ship? But see,
Yep. You could sell contraband to him, and it no longer shows up on your ship.
I mean,
No, it's gameplay breaking, lore breaking, kind of. Yeah,
a little bit.
You're right.
It makes sense to be able to sell it to him. But then, I don't know, there'd have to be a way to explain how. I mean, obviously, just for the to speed up the mechanics, so you don't have to. Oh, I've got to go here first. But then that basically means shielded cargo is pointless.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, probably good to have on your ship just in case you hop into a system and you forget that you had stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you always had the option to jettison, but
Yeah.
this way, at least you're making a few bucks off the stuff
Mhm.
instead of
my first experience with stolen items in a Bethesda game was in Oblivion. There's that quest. It's a miscellaneous quest in Imperial City. There's a grave robber guy going. It's connected to the merchant. So there's the grave robber thing. Oh, you just did that one on the remaster.
Yep.
So Erigmar or whatever his name was, the head honcho.
Yeah, that's called friendly competition.
Yes, that one. And so I'm following the guy, and at this point I was a sword and board warrior. I was probably doing the fighter stronghold quest because I didn't do the thieves quest till later. So I had no sneak. I was probably still wearing my heavy armor because I remember being fairly, new to just the mechanics of these, Bethesda games. Well, I needed to get the guy's key so I could break into his house because my lockpicking skill was garbage.
Right.
So I stole the key. At this point, I knew that if I, got caught stealing, I would be in trouble, taken to jail, have the stolen items removed. So I'm like, crap, like I'm probably not going to successfully steal this key. So I stole the key off him. I took off running. And at this point we were, you're in the very center of Imperial City. And I got a bit in front of him and I dropped the key on the ground and it landed on like a stone on the path where I could clearly, or just off the path right next to maybe some gravestones or bushes or something. And it was clearly right there. I get arrested and I'm like, yep, sure. You can take me in, cuff me up, go to the Imperial City jail. And then I go straight back to the center of the Imperial City, right to where that key was supposed to be. And it was there on the ground. That was like my shining moment of, on one hand, thinking I'm an awesome thief because I'm like making use of what I'm capable of doing, but also a credit to the game because it remembered I dropped the key right there. I need that key.
And that is the magic of Bethesda's game engine.
Yep.
That's a clear example of it's not the best game engine for size or speed or graphics, but what you just described explains why they have the loading screens, and each cell has to remember every placement of everything. And if you pick the cup up in one room and you carry it to the other room and then you leave and you come back, the cup is still in the other room.
Exactly.
It doesn't go back. No placement. So everything is, what's it called? Dynamic.
Yeah.
Not everything's static. There's a lot of dynamic, movable objects.
Yeah.
So, and that's the big thing that people overlook when they complain about the Bethesda game engine. And it's an outdated engine and it just doesn't perform the way all these other engines. You don't have that. You don't have all that stuff with all these other engines. They're getting there, but Bethesda's been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah. 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 And I don't want the game engine to change away from that. That's why I like these games. If they change from that, picking up everything, it would feel like a different game.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do.
You'd be stuck playing Oblivion or Skyrim.
Well, or Starfield.
Or
if Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and they've gone to a whole new engine and they don't have that being able to pick stuff up thing, I probably would not play the game.
I won't say that. I would play it.
I'd be on the fence. I'd be on the
It would
fence.
it would definitely be a critique of mine that, man, I sure wish they
Yeah.
would. I mean, ifs and buts and candies and nuts, right?
Well, and see, this is why I want to get Oblivion, not so much because I really want to replay it or the remaster, but I do want to at least play the game again because there's a few things they've tweaked, but it's mainly a graphics and kind of a gameplay,
Yeah.
overhaul. But a lot of the quirkiness of the little way things work, they kept intact, right? So
Mhm.
to a certain extent, I want to play the game so we can have sometime in the near future, we can have a Starfield versus Oblivion remaster episode where we kind of actually look at like what has Bethesda gotten rid of in the
Mhm.
mechanics of their games from a game that's 20 years old,
Right.
because I think that'd be a worthwhile discussion to have. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll get to that. Okay, so you were saying moving on to graphics.
Yep. They've got some updates for different screen resolution sizes. So that's optimization
Yeah.
stuff. Resolved issues that could cause frame rates to drop when opening a scanner. Again, more optimization stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole update looks like it's doing a lot of back end optimizing of the game. And again,
Yep.
I sure hope that fixes and smooths out some of the stuttering because that's my biggest issue is the stuttering right now. It's
Yep.
about every 3/4 of a second it stops for a quarter of a second and then stutters. It's difficult.
Okay.
So
Yeah, reading from the graphics to the quest, it just basically fixing bugs,
mhm.
and then
I don't
locations. Yeah, pretty much just all. Yeah, all updates to the mannequins. Mannequins will now persist as intended in the New Atlantis penthouse. Oh, your display mannequins when you're putting your armor and stuff on, probably.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, in Skyrim, I don't think I ever had this happen to me, but apparently in Skyrim there was this thing where the mannequins would move. Did you ever hear about that? I
Yes.
never
I
had it
even
happen to me.
I had one of the houses and I had 3 or 4 mannequins in the basement and I had them lined up, like statuettes down a row, and you walked in, and so it was my display room to see all these, and you'd go off and play and come back, and the mannequins were no longer side by side in a row to walk down a row between them. They kind of were moved in different locations in the basement, and you walk in and go, um, "Who's
Yeah,
been in here?" It was weird.
I think it's because they used the player model or an NPC model to be the code platform to put mannequins and suits on, which makes sense. But then in some cases there was some issues where the code was not written correctly or edited correctly to tell those mannequins to stay in one spot. So when you were there, they would never move, but when you left, they basically became an NPC and would walk around,
Roam the
and
room when you're not
and
looking.
you come back and then they're you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah, haunted. That's haunted.
haunted
Which
house.
is yeah, that's acceptable in Skyrim. You're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that kinda makes sense."
Well, in Oblivion, it'd be cool if they actually had like a haunted house that was just always haunted. Like that just stayed that way. And optionally, you could have an exorcism little side quest to do an exorcism on it. But
Right.
the house in Anvil in Oblivion starts off as haunted. That's why it's so cheap to buy. But then once you kill off all the ghosts, then it's yours, and you get to furnish it and all that stuff.
Yeah, I've not gotten there yet.
Yeah. It's one of the, for as big as the house is, it's one of the cheaper houses in the game.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I think Skingrad was the most expensive house, and then I think or Anvil might have been the cheapest, in fact, or Bruma. So okay, so now we're moving on to UI.
Yeah, got some UI stuff. And, Shipbuilder, that's always yours and my Favorite part to talk about. Resolved issues with the ship upgrade menu. One module is available for upgrade. Only one. I don't know what that means. Address a selection issue when using large fonts. I use large fonts because I'm old and can't see.
Uh,
That's good.
I've never even thought to change the font size. But
I'm sitting across the room, and so I need it a little bigger so I'm not having to stand up every 30 seconds to step across the room and see what it's trying to tell me.
Well, the previous one, I'm thinking where you're upgrading your modules. You know how you can do that, but you can do that before you go into the ship builder itself. Because you can go into the ship builder, take the modules off manually, take your weapon off, put a new one on, or your shield or anything, your reactor grav drive. So maybe there's an issue where when people are trying to upgrade the parts, only one of the options would be available, and then maybe they have to exit and then re-enter. I don't know.
That makes sense. I used that feature before I started building ships because the ship building was a little bit intimidating to me. So I was just dipping my toe in by upgrading the engines or upgrading the shields or upgrading the weapons, but I never really did any of the ship building. So I used that feature early on.
Oh, okay.
I haven't since I started building ships. I just go straight into modify my ship. Okay, so that makes sense.
And updated. Yeah, next one is updated the names of empty ship modules. Now I wonder if. Well, I don't know of any that are misnamed, like the furnished version versus the custom empty version. I don't know of any of them that are misnamed.
I don't either. They all are like 2x2.
Yeah.
Nova Galactic Mess Hall.
Now
and then it's 2x2 Nova Galactic Mess Hall empty.
I'm still working through the custom empty habs on my Hab Showroom series, and my next one's going to be Nova Galactic, then Stroud Eklund, then Teo. So I might come. Well, if this patch drops before I do those videos, then I would never know. But to this point, everything I've gone through, the only thing that's annoying is what was it? The Hope Tech all-in-one berth 2x2, I believe, does not have an empty custom variant of it.
Okay,
the furnished one's there, the empty one's not. So hopefully that gets fixed at the same time.
This just says update names.
Yeah.
So maybe there was an A and a B, and the B was the empty one, but they didn't specifically name it empty. I don't know. That's interesting. We'll do some more digging around, though. I'm sure I'll hear somebody talk about it. As much of the different content that I try to watch.
Yeah. Now, looking at the vehicle, so we'll have a marker on our compass where the vehicle is. That's nice. I mean, although you can just always open up your scanner and spin, but at least maybe having it on your compass would be nice, so you can just quickly look at it. Yeah, and I would have issues with exiting the vehicle when partially obstructed, where I'm like, I should be able to get out of it. Like I'm close to the wall, but it was like the invisible space you need to open the door and exit was like an issue.
Yeah, the hitbox. Well, and I experienced that specifically when I would just playing around try to park my buggy inside of my ship bay. And if you get those, which I can't remember which one the name is, but there's one that's like a wider ship bay, the landing bay.
Oh,
and you
Hope
can
Tech.
drive. And you can drive the buggy right up into it, and you can clearly see that there's enough room for the buggy to sit there. And I mean, if it was real life, there'd be 2 or 3 feet between the tires and the wall. It looks plenty of space, but you couldn't get out. So that hopefully that's what they're talking about, because it's kind of fun role play to drive your buggy up into your ship and then hop out. Like that's what you would do.
Now, it says the vehicle will now deploy when landing at locations other than spaceports or landing pads. I've never had it not deploy. Is that a thing?
I've never had a problem with that either. Huh. I've had it like pop in.
Okay.
I've noticed recently in my ship, when I'm doing my ship building, and I'm in the ship builder, and I exit out of the ship builder, all of the surroundings appear.
Yep.
And then about a second and a half later, boop, the buggy appears.
Gotcha.
So I've had that kind of pop in a little bit late, but I've never had it not show up. That's kind of, yeah, that's a new one on me. I guess somebody's having issues with that. And that's good. If somebody's having issues and they're fixing it, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's how it is a lot of times when I read these Bethesda notes. Like I see all these bugs and issues that I've never had, but clearly other players have had. So I'm obviously happy that they're fixing it. And lastly, we have some Shattered Space related updates, which I can't comment on because I still have not done the Shattered Space DLC because I'm at this point I've just decided to wait to do it until we get to it in our show here. Same with Ryujin Questline. Still haven't done that one.
Look at bullet line number 5 under Shattered Space.
Performance, that one. Addressed an issue that could cause slight stutters in the well and outside. Oh, okay. So I'll have to go into the well and see if that's improved.
Yep.
And then compare that to Sidonia and Neon City. Okay.
Flare flickering.
Lens flare.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of optimization notes in this patch, it looks like. So yeah, I think this is gonna give us a lot smoother experience, it looks like. Just look at overall, you take the whole thing as a whole and go, this patch is a lot about optimization.
Yeah, which it's great to get the new content, but it's like I'd rather have these kind of updates more often than the big update, the content ones, because if what you have to play isn't working or broken or bugged, you
stop playing, you move on.
Yeah. Granted, I like the Unity and what that does, and so you can go through the Unity and from a lore perspective, it's still your same character. You're just in a new universe, and then therefore that allows you to clean out your game,
right?
Bugs that were there could go away.
Yeah,
but ultimately, just fixing the bugs like this is what I want to see them doing, and honestly, I want to see them doing it more often.
It'd be nice to see this every 3 months. Get a quarterly update of. I mean, if Todd Howard is telling us the truth, and they're going to support this for years, multiple to come, then small quarterly optimization updates, small quarterly bug fixes. I mean, you could just take half of this list and go, okay, this is this quarter's update. Boom, here you go.
Yep.
Okay, good, smoother, better. All right, we're running gooder.
Yeah, and as Todd said, years to come, I can see that happening with this game. I know it's a new game, so it doesn't have the lore and the history compared to Elder Scrolls and Fallout. But as Wicked was saying in our interview last week, this is a modder's like paradise. There's 900 planets, because there's a heat map in Skyrim for the modding community that shows where mods are that physically affect the map. So modders aren't stepping on each other's toes, or at least they can say, "Hey, there's a conflict with this. These are the mods because I've done something in this space that 3 other mod authors have already done." Right. But with Starfield, you have several hundred planets, and even then, it's all procedurally generated. So you could put a marker on Earth and have like a bunker, an old lab that you have to go clear out, and somebody could have put a marker right next to it. But because you're loading in its own procedurally generated little grid, however big those grids are, I can't remember how many meters they are, but it's all. It would almost, unless it's mods in Neon City, Aquila City, New Atlantis, you're not going to have those issues, right? So it's an excellent setup for modders.
Yeah, and kind of a trend with creations has been planets, whole planets. Not just building something on an existing planet, building an entire planet as a mod.
Yep. Well, did you see that one where there was the two Heaven and Hell. Yeah, that was really cool how that was set up. So like one's like a paradise, the other's like a volcanic mess.
Yeah, whole new planets people are building. So it's completely up to the imagination of the modder.
Yep.
Whatever he wants to do at this point, you can do entire planets. So
Yep.
don't worry about somebody stepping on where you're building because you just build your own planet or somewhere else.
Well, although to that extent, let's go to Skyrim or Fallout. What's to say a modder couldn't like put an NPC at a dock somewhere? You walk up to the NPC and you can travel, and you go to an island that they've made.
Yeah, I imagine you could. That's what Shivering Isles is, right? Isn't that how they do that one?
Yeah. I mean, well, in that case, you're going to another plane of Oblivion. But yeah, you swim out to that little island in that bay, or it's in the river, and you go through the door there, and you go to a new place. So it effectively be the same thing. But yeah, you're just traveling to an entirely new place. So
right.
It would have its own.
What was the DLC in Skyrim where you went to the other place with all the
Dragonborn DLC? Yeah, you went to Solstheim.
That's it.
Yeah,
yeah.
So modders could do that. But then that would require creating the landmass and everything. And so, how big of a landmass do you have at that? I mean, Starfield has the procedural generated thing, so at least that helps them create. They don't have to. Yeah. So they can create the grid with the procedural generated thing, and then put their own buildings and whatever they're doing on there.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite a bit of meandering and talking about an update patch. And so we did not get to the Unearthed mission today. But we're going to go ahead and do another episode for you guys next week, the 17th. So if you have any feedback for the Unearthed mission, where we go to NASA, get that in by Friday the 16th, and we'll be sure to talk about your feedback on the air here.
So this is episode 10, right?
This one we're doing right now is episode 10. Yep.
So that'll be 10.5?
10.5. I'll call it 11, but yeah, 10.5. I'll call it 11. But yeah, we're officially in the double digits.
That's awesome.
Double digits. So I'm hoping we'll get to the triple digits. I'm pretty sure we'll be able to. I'm pretty sure we could.
Yeah. I mean, look at today. We had what? We wanted to talk about one mission and a short patch notes list.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are an hour and a half later. We never made it to the mission. So
yep.
I'm sure we can talk about this for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Well,
as long as people want to listen. And you know what? I love all of our listeners. I appreciate every single one of you guys that listens.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have more. But as I've said before, this is just a conversation between a couple of old guys that love a game.
Yep.
So we're going to do this no matter what. Because Kitty and I love talking to each other about this stuff. So
yeah. And the likelihood of me
for the ride
playing I am confession.
Uh-oh.
I started playing Jedi Soul Survivor last night. Star Wars Jedi Soul Survivor. There was the first one, Jedi Fallen Order, and it follows Cal Kestis, the character Cal. He's short red hair, and it's right after Order 66. His master gets killed, and so it's in the Empire days. So it's well before Luke Skywalker and everything.
Right. So, all the Sith were sent out to kill all the Jedi, right?
Yeah. And so in the first game you're hunted by there's one main Inquisitor. I think she was called the Second Sister. That was like your arch nemesis. You face off against her early on in the game, and she just hands you your own ass on a silver platter. And then later on, she's the final boss fight. But you also fight Vader at one point. You fight some other known characters. But the second game, Soul Survivor, I started that up last night because it's been sitting there, and it's like, with those kind of games, I play them and then I uninstall them. So I've had that game sitting there for months because I snagged it during the Christmas season this last year. And so I fired that up just because I want a little, in order for me to maintain my desire for one thing, sometimes I have to just do something else for a little bit, So, but yeah, I'll dedicate to the Unearthed mission
Thanks.
this next week. And I forgot to mention that. I'll get into that on the next episode. My whole pilgrim thing. We've talked about that off there, but I'll get into that on when we actually do the Unearthed mission.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, folks, thank you. Thanks, guys, for tuning in once again to the Starfield Report podcast. We always love bringing our conversations to you, and we hope you guys enjoy these and enjoy the Starfield. Do you have any last comments there, Jax?
All right, guys, y'all stay young, and remember, as always, drive fast and take lots of chances.
All right, see you in the Starfield.
Now that was some fine work under pressure.
Get out of here, Dusty. You're on to bigger things.